Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of Linux Guru Guy. And today we're going to look at a lot of distros. All the distros we looked at, the last 10 distros, we're going to summarize them and rank them and give them top 10 distros for new users to look at in a moment, right after the intro. And we're back, and we wanted to let you know we got a lot of stuff to get to, so we're going to get to it right away. Now we have a new user distros that we reviewed, or the last 10 distros we reviewed over the last since about February, beginning of February, end of February, I think is when we started. And we have new user distros. Now, new users is a very large generalized category of users. There's all sorts of users of Linux. You have the new to computer general user, just new to computers altogether. They're probably easiest to train. B, to someone who basically uses their OS for checking emails and typing documents and printing it, and use a browser to watch YouTube videos like this one, and for whatever other purposes, but not much more than that. Not anything real technical, not anything real difficult for a computer to use. A lot of people use those for those reasons. We have two more advanced users of Windows or Mac, but the operations of a computer are a mystery to them. If they do have any problems, they'll then rely upon the services of other people to fix their system. Yeah, and then you all the way to guru status on Windows or Mac. Somebody's a guru status. So yeah, you have a lot of different users. That's one type. Then you also have new users can approach Linux in different ways. New users can expect that Linux will be like Windows and how it operates. They are destined to a miserable experience with Linux. Yeah, expecting that Linux will work out of the box in all ways like Windows. None of the distros scored perfect 100 on their new user distros. Yeah, so at that, you'll likely have to install programs and apps to tweak the OS to some degree, no matter which distro you use. Those who aren't keen on learning a new system or another type of user have difficulty with this system. The group above most likely will have that issue. Oh, the guru status window. Yeah, the guru status are probably ones that will have the most difficulty learning Linux because they're to move to a system where you go from a guru god to a know-nothing noob is somewhat difficult to do sometimes for some people. So, yeah, but if you're willing to learn, that's a good way to approach Linux. Just learn one thing at a time, take it slow, don't try to chunk off too big a hunk at one shot. There are also different types of Linux users. There's I'm curious about Linux, want to give it a go person. The I hate Windows Mac because of X reasons, so I'm moving to Linux because it solved that issue person. The hey, it's free person. The proponents of free and open source software person, which are two different things altogether. Yeah, I had to learn that, not the hard way, but kind of, I didn't think about that too much when I first was in Linux. I just knew everything was free, pretty much. I didn't have to pay for anything. But that's not what free and open source software is talking about. Free and open source software means you can look at source code, anybody can look at source code, anybody can compile it, change it, modify it however they want, and put it out there however they want. So, yeah, that's what open source, free and open source means, it talks about. Yeah, you can, non-free and not free doesn't mean the same thing. I think I said that right. Okay, so that's this. Now I had choices of distros to grade this whole long, so I've attempted to pick distros with one notable exception that were generally recommended as good distros for new users. Notice that this list is heavily weighted toward Debian-based distributions, probably because most Debian distributions are the ones that are made. I mean, there's other distributions like Solus, I think, probably would be a good distribution for new users. And I didn't include them though, because most people don't recommend it. But it's probably about as good as Debian is for new users. And it's got the advantage of being a rolling release. Not as rolling releasey as Arch is, but it's got the advantage of that. Arch, because of the way it approaches the distros and the packages and stuff, it tries to keep things super simple, which means they have a minimal install and you can add what you want on it. Most Arch distros try to keep that, so most of them don't have printers set up in their system, for instance, because they want you to install it yourself if you want printer functions. So you have to install the cups software, you have to install the software to bring up your printer and set it up. You also have to initiate cups in the system control in the sub D menu, system D menu. So yeah, you have to do all that kind of stuff in order to get it to even operate out of the box. So well, it's not really out of the box. That's kind of contradictory, isn't it? Yeah. So anyway, you have to do all that stuff in order to get system up and running. And there's other things like Bluetooth. Some of them have Bluetooth already installed. A lot of them don't. It all depends on that. And like Endeavor, I have put an Endeavor on here. It's about almost as Arch-based as the distros you can get without being Arch entirely. Next thing to Arch, vanilla Arch. But yeah, I had to. Some of these distros don't get the install cups for you, but they won't start it. So you have to go in there and then terminally hit sudo system control start cups, and then you have to enable it if you want to keep it up to next when you reboot. There are a ton more recommended distros for new users. If I didn't cover distro you're interested in, you can do it yourself by downloading their ISO, installing in a virtual machine or a spare laptop hard drive that you have, then use the categories on the spreadsheet to grade it. My first attempt to install a Linux distribution was vanilla Debian back in 2001, I believe. And it didn't go very well. I think I mentioned this previous video, but yeah. The first distro I used as a daily driver was Ubuntu. Not specifically a user-friendly distro. It took me around 4 to 5 months at the time to set it up as I wanted it. But then I used it for around 6 years before switching to Ubuntu around the end of 2016. Then to Linux many years later, which I fell in love with almost immediately. So yeah, that's how I chose my distros anyway. Yeah, you got some good distros in there. All of them are great distros, I think. That's another thing I need to note, is all of the distros in here are good. Just because one's at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 doesn't mean they're not good distros. Okay. Yeah. So someone had some certain problems. It might make them harder for new users to use, but yeah, they're all pretty good distros in their own way. They have their advantages. Everyone has their advantages and their disadvantages. Okay. About my choice of topics to grade, I chose several topics to grade. I know in some of those selections, it could be interpreted to come more from my affinity with Linux Mint. As an example, my choice of including a good welcome screen is being worth a full 10 points. Some people might not care for those things and hate them. May get in the way, and every time they install a new distro, it pops up. Oh, welcome screen, hi! But I think for new users are kind of important, especially somebody that doesn't have a clue about Windows or about Linux or how to get around in it, how to update it, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that's Or that on some issues, a new user may prefer not to have a welcome screen. May appreciate you. I said it already. Or the different people will not agree with my selection of what a new user would need. And it all depends on what kind of new user you are, as I list up there at the top of the list. A lot of that depends on what a new user wants and comes to Linux for. So yeah, take all that into consideration when you're doing this. So there's no way I could design a grading system that everyone or even most people would agree with, so I only had what I thought a new Linux user might need in their first Linux distribution they install. That was also why I said toward the beginning of this series that any user could download this spreadsheet, my website, and tweak it with their own categories and what they want in a new distro. And then as you follow along this as I do, or do your own reviews on other distros, and and score them however you wish to do so, and pick out the best Linux distro for you. For instance, maybe you as a new user would love a distro that didn't attempt to hold your hand through every phase, whether that be an annoying welcome screen that pops up, or all the programs that are installed that you'll never use or desire. In that case, distros like Linux Mint, Elementary, and PopOS would probably score a lot lower on your spreadsheet, while a distro like Manjaro would likely score higher. Just because I have selected these criteria doesn't mean you have to select them as well. Oh, I have one thing I need to add into this. This is kind of a party, so to speak, the end of the final summary of the whole series. So I have a little party favor here. Do some beatboxing, boy. That's my son Jeremy, actually, if you don't know that. He was here. We actually recorded that 2 Christmases ago, I think. Or 3 or something like that. I don't remember when we recorded it. Anyway, PeppermintOS is the first one we're going to look at. Now, I'm going to briefly go over these choices of what I was looking for in these things here. The user activities list, website navigation, how easy it is to find your ISO that you want, how well laid out the website was, that kind of thing. Most of them scored pretty good on that, as you see. PeppermintOS scored a 10 on that. Ease of installation. I'm wondering, how complicated or difficult was it to install an installation, get it working. And guided tour, whether I had a guided tour welcome screen or all the names they call them, like Manjaro has hello screen. And then all the programs you want installed out of the box. It has all the standard stuff most people use, like your web browser and email client and word processor, media players and stuff like that, all the things you need to basically use your system. Maybe some other things on there, but I could only fit about 5 or 6 in there in this point system. I didn't want to overstep it. I could have put something else. I don't know about file manager. I shouldn't put file manager in there because every distro has to have a file manager. So what are you going to do if it doesn't? You have to use a command line off for everything. So yeah. So we have word processor and media players. So those I tried to pick out programs I thought that you want to make sure are in the distro. And then program availability is how easy it was to get and install programs on your system. What kind of GUI they had and that kind of thing for it. All of them had some kind of GUI for installing programs. Most of them got pretty high on that. How easy is to set a printer? Now that was a difficult one. Some distros did a lot better than others on that one. Keyboard shortcut setups. That's the one that's kind of iffy. Some users, like when I came over to Linux, I had my standard keyboard shortcuts I used on Windows. I set up my programs to open up like Control Shift W for I always open up my word processor, which I used at the time was LibreOffice on Windows. So I was already used to that, using LibreOffice. As a matter of fact, I had set up my whole novel writing software stuff in LibreOffice to work that way. I even wrote a blog on it that was somewhat popular at the time about how to set up LibreOffice for word processor. Probably still somewhat popular. I don't know. I haven't looked at it for a long time to know. Then you had themes and wallpapers. How well was it to theme out and wallpaper your thing, your distro? Updating, how easy it was to update. Most of them did pretty well on that. And easy menu and activating programs. Most of them did pretty well on that too. So, yeah, it all depends on the desktop and what kind of menu system they had and that kind of thing. But most of them, I tried to be fair, even though I prefer the Linux menu type system, the way that works. Cinnamon desktop version. Yeah, I tried to be fair to them. I think I gave them all high grades on that. So, yeah. So that's PeppermintOS. Graded all those. Let's go over them real quick. PeppermintOS has LXDE desktop on it, which is first actually what Elementu had. It was the first one I ever used with OpenBox as a window manager. Like I said, website navigation was easy and pretty easy. Installation was a bit of an issue problem. Probably should have deducted more than 2 points for that one, but it was already a low man on tone pole in that regard, because when I installed it on 2 different computers, it had problems with the install. Toward the end of it, it couldn't install Grub Common, I think was the file. It couldn't install or activate or something like that. Anyway, it said it's a fatal error, and it stopped the whole distro. The whole installation failed at that point. And I was like, well, what do I do now? So, but after I realized after I went on and rebooted into PeppermintOS, it booted up just like it should. But yeah, the only issue is you had to run a specific command that it told you to run when you first threw in the update. It gave you a command to run for updates. And then once you ran that command, everything worked normal after that. But probably finished to see what the installation couldn't do or something like that. So anyway, 10, easy installation. We put 8. Guided tour, it had practically no guided tour. Peppermint didn't. That gave it 2 for that. And it had didn't have an email client. It also didn't have a music player, if I remember right, installed. So you have to install those yourself. Yeah, so program availability was a 9. I mean, most of these are Debian bases. Peppermint's based on Ubuntu, if I remember correctly. It had easy access to programs. All the Debian-based programs and Ubuntu-based programs are there for you to select from, as well as they had their own repositories. Of course, almost all these distros have their own repositories that you can pull programs from. Printer setup, real easy. Whiz bam bam. That's one of the good things about Peppermint. However, I would personally like to install my own printer anyway, just because I got to set up the same scan driver on there, and they've been based. I got to pull set up for that. Then updating was easy and painless. Menu activities was pretty good. The activating program. So all together it scored 76. Put it in 9th place. PeppermintOS. Now, I like Peppermint. It also has a classification being the ICE function to it, so that you can basically containerize into a application type container websites. Lenny Smith also added that onto their distro not too long ago. But yeah, that's one of the things PeppermintOS, and what attracted me initially PeppermintOS was that ability, the cloud-based. You could set up your whole system to be totally cloud-based if you wanted to, using ICE. PopOS came in at number 8. Yay! PopOS came in at number 8. PopOS had 10, website navigation, ease of installation, install without a hitch. Guided tour, it had somewhat of a guided tour, but not much of one, so I gave it a 4 on that regard. And probably is one of those ones that had a updating, forced update and stuff like that. Something like that. It had almost all the programs. I think I gave the file manager 1 because it wasn't a file manager I was familiar with. It may be a good file manager, but I think I looked at preferences on it and it didn't have much theming options to it, which really PopOS Elementary and some extent Zorin don't have as much theming issues on their activities. But yeah, so I kind of gave it this. I couldn't set up quite like I wanted to, so I think I gave it a 1. It had a file manager. That's the only one where the file manager made any kind of difference in the score. But word processor, I gave that one a 2. Because it had a word processor back on me. I wish I had wrote down what exactly each one had on these spreadsheets, but I didn't think to do that, so there you go. A word processor, media player. It had both. It had a media player, but it didn't have a music player. So if you wanted to play your music files in your program on your system or other places, set up all that kind of stuff, then you would have to set up your own music player. Programmability, it had a 9 out of 10 because it's a Ubuntu-based system. It's also based on Ubuntu, the GNOME desktop, and so it had a lot of programs. The printer was pretty easy to set up. I think it came set it up out of the box, except I think I may have had to set up the printer manually and to get it to work or something. I don't know. I mean, most users can do that. You just click, 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 yes, 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 type thing. But I don't remember why I gave that an 8 specifically, but I think it may have been why. Keyboard shortcuts. Yeah, I had keyboard shortcuts. They were somewhat organized, but I wasn't real excited with how they did keyboard shortcuts. Apparently, I gave it a 7. Themes wallpaper. Yeah, the limited themes on this. I think there's several wallpapers. One I really liked that I'm actually installed PopOS on my computer out in the living room because I really liked it, and it has the features that some features I liked about it, which was being able to shift it into a window manager type setup. So I was surprised that it could do out of the box. You just hit Super Y, I think, and it shifts it over to your window manager settings, and then tiling window manager type screen pops up on it. Pop, 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 PopOS. So yeah, yeah, but the theming on it was restrictive. It didn't have that much theming on it options. With wallpapers, I had some good wallpapers. Updating, it updated without a hitch, and the menu system was easy to use and that kind of thing. Now, if you're coming from Windows out of Windows or even maybe Mac to a certain degree, out of 10, a GNOME desktop can be kind of intimidating at first when you first look at it and you go, what? But yeah, all you have to do is hit the Windows key and type, and it brings up what you want. Most of the menus work that way, at least, so not really great for browsing, but you can get around easy enough. It's kind of like the Windows Cortana thing where you have the little search bar. You go in there. That's the easy way to find stuff on that system. In Windows is to go to the little search bar and type in what you're looking for. Pops up and yeah, there's the app. Click. There you go. And there's some advantages to that system too. That's how Ropey works. If you ever get into window managers, I should have introduced window. Well, it's a good tiling window manager if you want to get into that side of it. I'm not sure there are any good ones for new users. I would say avoid tiling managers as a desktop environment type situation until you get your feet wet with a regular desktop and you get to understand Linux a bit better. Once you do that, it's eating bread, child, and other things, So, and 10 easy minutes. So that's PopOS. What's number 7, you wonder? 7 Lindos. Now Lindos was its claim to fame is that it tried to initially it tried to be a Windows-like environment for Linux. Now, a lot of people who are coming from Windows maybe don't want a Windows environment. Some might feel better, more at home in a Windows environment look and feel. It basically was amazingly themed out, very detailedly, to look almost exactly like you're logging into Windows with. I mean, you start noticing differences here and there. It's inevitable, but so anyway, Lindos has a cinnamon desktop on it, and it basically tweaked it out somewhat to be more Windows-esque than it already is, which it really looks pretty much the same as the cinnamon desktop on Linux Mint, I think. Yeah, there wasn't much difference there. Now, I was saying originally they wanted to be Windows-like, but I think they had some issues with the copyright on Windows. You think? So I think they've they toned it down that it doesn't look exactly like Windows anymore. They wanted to give it the Windows feel as much as possible. So they have a good system, I think, overall, despite what some people probably look at. Some of the more experienced people look at as kind of not another Windows clone. But it's not really a Windows clone anymore. It's trying to be more of its own thing, according to the website. And I think they are succeeding to a certain degree, but whether they'll actually get enough attention to people to look at it seriously, I don't know. You can look at it on my review of it if you haven't already. Check it out. Might be something you'd be interested in. Who knows? Anyway, it had a 7 on website navigation, and I think it's harder to find the ISO file you need to download in order to put on a USB stick in order to install it on your system. So, ease of installation, it had a 5 now. I don't remember exactly what the cause of that was, but I think it was an issue with, I remember now, I went through there to look at, I was installing it, and it didn't install on automatic for some reason. And I don't know if it was my system, a bug, or just a conflict with drivers and stuff, or what it was. But yeah, so I had to basically go to the manual partitioning in order to partition it correctly so it would recognize my system and install correctly. Yeah, it wouldn't install automatically correctly anyway. So I gave that a 5. Now, whether you have that problem on your system may be another issue. But anyway, yeah, you might want to look into before you install this and how to partition your hard drive before you do that if you don't know anything about that. Number 10, the guided tour. It had a good guided tour. Obviously a real good one. Lindos, yeah. Yeah, it had an interesting guided tour in that the live portion had this kind of almost comic book look to it. Not comic book in the look of it, but the comic book where it's showing little balloons, text balloons with text in it, and pointing to certain points on the menu and stuff like that to show you how it worked. So that was pretty cool, I thought. It kind of, I mean, you had to sit there and the person installing it may get tired of it if they installed a lot, because he pretty much forced you to sit there and go through this video about it. But there you go. It wouldn't be one that you want to use as a standard live USB to hang on to in order you want to just stick it in there and boot your system up and correct it or something like that. Because it's above that, but for a new user coming in, it's the first time they come in, they probably look pretty nice. And they had a good Windows setup on there. So they got a 10. Now install programs. It had every program you wanted on there out of the box. So yeah, you had all your programs you wanted. Everyone was there. He gave a high grade on program availability because it's based on, again, Ubuntu. As most of these are really, it's up being. And it had a keyboard shortcut steps. I think this is one of them. I think it might have been Lindos. But the way I gave it an 8 was because it was all over the place. I don't remember which one it was, whether it was which distro it was, but it was one that had them just tossed in there all over the place. So it's kind of hard to find the one you were looking for and set up your keyboard shortcuts the way you wanted to. The themes and wallpaper, it was good, but maybe not quite as good. I don't remember why I gave it an 8 instead of a 10. But probably there was some lack or minimal amount of wallpapers or minimal amount of themes you could install. Actually, I remember what I did that for. Because Lindos has minimal amount of theming on this system. However, because it was Lindos and it has the whole point of downloading Lindos is that you wanted a window-like system to download and themed like Windows to a certain degree. That's the whole point of the whole system. So it'd be crazy to install this wanting any other kind of theme on there, probably. So what's the point of changing the theme on it, you know? Yeah, you might as well just download vanilla Debian or one of the other new user ones that are more themable and go that route and theme it out however you want. So updating, so that's why I gave it 8. I gave it higher than it probably deserved based on other distros, only because this was Lindos. So, you know, there you go. Updating was good and the user menu activation improvement. So that's Lindos. Now we're going to go to number 6, and that was Manjaro. Manjaro is the only Arch-based distribution I have on this list because it's probably the most user-friendly of the groups. I mean, a lot of others are easy to install, like blah 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 distro. Those other distros out there, a lot of them are pretty easy to install and that kind of thing. And it did have a problem, as you notice on here, of installing printer. I gave that a 3 on the list. And yeah, it had printer problems on that one. 7. Yeah, easily installed. And it's easy to find the on the website navigation. It's easy to find the ISO. And the guided tour, there was one. Hello. For some reason I gave that a 7 instead of a full 10. I'm not sure exactly why now, but you can look at the review if you want to know that. It had all programs out of the box that you need. So I gave it 10. Program availability, well, I give that a pure 10 because of the AUR. If it wasn't for the AUR, there wouldn't be much point in using Arch, I guess. But yeah, it's you can find most any program you want in the AUR. Now there are some that aren't in there. You can go and get those and compile them yourself or something like that. But yeah, with AUR is almost any program. Someone I think I gave a 10 on for program availability because of that. Oh no, I gave one other 10 coming up the next one I know. So yeah, easy set printer, nope. Keyboard shortcuts is okay, but not real great. Themes and wallpapers, 8. Yeah, it was pretty good apparently. Had a lot of stuff there. Updating, it updated, and these menu and activating programs, 10s. That came to a total of 85 for 6th place. Yeah. Alright, now we're ready to go to number 5, which is no, whoops, went the wrong way. Sorry. MX Linux, yay! Okay, MX Linux is a kind of a outlier in some ways because it's based on some Debian and it's also based on some other software groups that kind of combine, which anti alias or something. I don't remember. My memory's not very good on this stuff. Anyway, yeah, you can check the video if you want to know more about that. But It is a good distro. It's actually #1 currently, or was when I did the video on it on the distro watch. Most hits and stuff on the website. Downloads or Linux Mint type thing. So I put on #5 on here because predominantly it got low points in keyboard shortcut setup. Apparently that wasn't very good at all. And themes and wallpapers was decent. And updating was good overall. And using menu activating pro was good. It had all the programs you wanted out of the box. It had 8, but I think it got nickeled and dimed to death mostly here. Yeah, ease of installation was 8, got it to was 8, so it had all that stuff, but it wasn't the easiest thing. The website was a big thing, I think. That and keyboard shortcut setups, apparently it wasn't very good on that. Yeah, I remember the Wii website was just kind of convoluted. You had to go through a list of files and pick the right one without a lot of instruction on how to do all that, unless you read up a bunch of long section of their installation type stuff. So I didn't think it's very intuitive, user friendly. You can find a download button, hit download, and have it download what you wanted off the bat. So yeah. So that came out with 86. That's MX Linux. It's a very good system, and I really times I've used it, which has been a couple of times, and I've got the review on it obviously, so I've installed it then. It's pretty good a distro once you get it up and running. Apparently, get up and running is a little bit more tedious and more of work than other distros. And I think the installation, I give it an 8 only because it wasn't a smooth Calamars type installer installed, but it was a little bit difficult how it worked and stuff like that. So mileage may vary, may be perfectly logical to you, but wasn't to me. So that's MX Linux. Now #4 on the list was Elementary OS. That's the first time I actually installed it and looked at it over. And because of my misconception about you have to pay to get it. Yeah, when you first go to the website, it kind of indicates you have to pay to get this one. But you just put 0 in for the donation and go on and it'll let you download it and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I did for this review. And I got it. So I gave it 10s on website navigation, installation, got it to it. Had all those things right there. Now programming is a little less. I think I gave it a 1, downgraded 1 on the email client. Oh yeah, I remember. Because Elementary has its own system and its own programs for all these things. I wasn't real sure without doing extensive research how well they operated that kind of way. But yeah, so I gave the email client a 1 that it had. It had all of the stuff except for word processor. It didn't have any word processor installed out of the box, but it did have email client, file manager. File manager, I had problems with the preferences on that one, I think. Media player. So it had a media player, but it didn't have any music player in there. So it kind of got low marks on the out-of-the-box programming setup. And it has a file manager, it has an email client. And the only thing it didn't have for sure was a word processor that I could find in there. But it had everything. It didn't have a music player. Those 2 things. The other things may be okay for you. Now I gave it a low amount of program availability because the Elementary, what they try to do, I understand why they're doing this, so that's what it is. Yeah, they lock things down more in Elementary, so you don't have as much programs you can set up as other systems. Because they want to use their stuff or their programs, apparently. And so it's kind of more like Apple in a sense in that way. And it has an Apple-ish feel to it as you install it, and it sets up its things like Apple does. So it's kind of Apple-based system. If you're coming from Apple, Macintosh, or any OS X system like that, you probably might be interested in elementary. Yeah, as far as theming, wallpaper, add basically dark and light. That's the only theming options you had on that. Had some decent wallpapers as I recall, but yeah, theming was pretty bad on that. I gave it a 7 there. Everything, printer setup well, keyboard shortcut was good, updating was good, using menus and activating programs was good, all that was good. So yeah, as I said at the beginning of this, all these are good distros. You can use elementary, make it work, I'm sure. And I just, for my needs and what I like to do with a distro, I wouldn't have been happy with it, even as a new user, but I would probably have been okay with it, I guess. Your mileage may vary, of course. There's lots of elementary OS people out there who love it. And because it is sort of locked down, it also is sort of good for new users in a way, because then they can't mess up things as much in their system. And so that's good in that regard. So, yeah. Your mileage may vary, as I said. So, 87 for elementary, came in number 4, though, despite all those issues. And that was good. So what takes a bronze? Which one takes a bronze out of the ones that are left? Ubuntu, Zorin OS, tied for 3rd place with 89 points for each of them. Now, as you can see, the website navigation for Ubuntu is good, obviously, and Zorin was decent, and they had ease of installation was easy. Now, on the guided tour part, Ubuntu had a decent guided tour where Zorin didn't have much of anything, except forcing you to go into updates, that kind of thing. So that's why I gave that a 3. Now, programs, all of them had all the programs you want. Good programs like Firefox and Thunderbird, that kind of thing. And they all both had equal program availability, equal printer setup. They both printer setup out of the box. You can go there and print right away if you wanted to. And keyboard shortcuts was both good. Apparently I graded Ubuntu a little lower on the scale than I did Zorin. I'm not sure why. Go figure. So, themes wallpapers where I really downgraded Ubuntu. And I don't remember exactly why, whether it was the themes, the wallpapers. You have to go look at the review of it I had if you want to find out why I downgraded that low of a level. Number 9, I gave 9 for Zorin on that, so it came out better, a lot better, actually, on the themes and wallpapers. Updating, and menu was, the ease of menu activating programs was 10 on both of those. So yeah, it mainly, Ubuntu got hurt on the theming, wallpapers, and Zorin got hurt on the guided tour issue. Otherwise, they were pretty much even Steven. Obviously, they came out even on the points. So that's what you get out of the box. That's where Ubuntu Zorin fell in with number 3. They take the bronze. Now, who's taking silver? Got 2 left. Silver is Neptune OS. Yes. Now, I really kind of threw this one in because it's not one that's actually recommended for new users by people out there in the Linux community. But actually, on my grade here, it came out pretty close, pretty well on the list. I decided to throw this in partly because I wanted to look at it, for one thing. I was interested in because of what I said before, a Neptune planet fanboy of Neptune, I guess you could say. So when I saw it was Neptune, I said, ooh, I gotta review that one. I decided to throw it in with these reviews I was doing. And Neptune came out pretty smell like roses there. I mean, the one thing it had a problem with is, of course, being not specifically for new users, didn't have any kind of guided tour. You had your updates, it forced you into updates, that was good. But everything else got a high score on it, 10, 10. 10's all the way down almost. 9 on program availability, since it is a Debian based system. It's one of the only two that's purely Debian based systems out there. And it's also, I think, the only one that had KDE Plasma as its desktop out of the ones reviewed. Which I understand KDE is kind of a, I don't know what to say about it exactly. It's a good desktop environment. It also can be very simple to use if you don't mess with anything. If you start to look into things and start to try to change things up too much, you can get pretty deep into the woods with it too. So, yeah. So as far as new users, I would say something like Cinnamon is a good desktop environment that can be very flexible and configurable without being too overwhelming. But yeah, if you go look at the setup menu on KDE, it's like, wow. Look at all these options I got to pick from. Yeah, 6.5 times the other anyway. So, easy menu programs, I gave it an 8. I think everything else. Now, one thing I can say for it is that what I've had problems with KDE in the past is the keyboard shortcuts. I'd plug them in, they wouldn't work. Some worse than others, but this worked. All the keyboard shortcuts I put into Neptune so far don't work. Have worked without a hitch. Matter of fact, I got Neptune over here on my computer, my desktop over here. Also installed Manjaro on this old laptop I have over here. So those programs, and I got Endeavor on my primary, my daily driver currently on my big laptop over here. A new laptop, yay! Yeah, which I just got. So PeppermintOS. Yeah, I really like that with distro, which is why I put it on my desktop over here. It's my writing computer. I like it. So anyway, that's PeppermintOS. And what came in first, do you think? Only one left. You know what it is? It's Linux Mint. Coming in at number 1. Now, obviously, Linux Mint has a lot of 10s on it, and it's got a couple 8s on it, and a 9 on it. So, what more can you say? It's good distro. It works out of the box. Pretty much has all the programs most users want out of the box, and it's a good. That's why it's one of the biggest recommended distros for new users, coming from Windows especially. Recommended. Linux Mint, PopOS, another one that's highly recommended. Well, those are the two I've heard recommended the most often for new users: is Linux Mint and PopOS. There's a lot of others you could use that we've shown here, but yeah, those are big ones. And Ubuntu is the other big one I've heard mentioned frequently. Linux Mint, Ubuntu, or Linux Mint, PopOS. But yeah, so not much to say about Linux Mint other than it works. Everything comes out set up out of the box pretty much. Install it and start using it. If you want to do that, you can do that. If you don't want to tweak much of anything, that's the distro for you. So, and it also has a menu that works a lot like Windows. And I have Cinnamon installed on this distro here on Endeavor, so you can install Cinnamon on most any distros. A lot of distros come with Cinnamon pre-installed on it. Matter of fact, I installed Cinnamon Desktop on my laptop over here with Manjaro. You can install Cinnamon on a lot of different distros, even if you don't have Cinnamon. They just don't have the option to install Cinnamon. 9 times out of 10, it's in the repos, so you can install it that way manually if you wanted to. It's your standard good solid distro for new users. It works, and that's why a lot of people recommend it, because it just works. You don't have to set up a lot. It just pops up. Things work. That's our review. So yeah, that was the distro reviews. Summary of it, and all the ones you can go look at the previous reviews I did on each one. If any of them interest you, check them out. Check it out, see what you like, see what you think, and install Linux on your machine. But before I go, I'm gonna watch one more instance of do some beatboxing, boy. Yeah, so anyway, hope subscribe, and if you want to, down below, and also check out the other videos if you have time, and click the notification bell if you want emails based on it. Hit the like button, all that good stuff. You know what to do, just do it. Till next time though, may the Linux force be with you. Bye.